Committee come to order. Before we start, I wanted to notice to every member that you'll find in your desk drawer, in addition to a seating chart of the members of the committee, a chart of all the staff on both sides of the aisle. It's just been one of those things that's always driven me nuts over the last 20 years, is not knowing who all these people are that work for us and keeping up with them as they change. So that'll be in your desk drawer. Without objection, the chair may declare the hearing in recess at any point so ordered. A few housekeeping matters before we begin. First, we will adjourn the public portion of this hearing at 12:30 today and immediately move upstairs for the classified portion. Second, I want to welcome back to the committee Mr. Vesey after his brief hiatus. Glad that you remembered where we were. And finally, after consultation with the minority, I ask unanimous consent that Mr. Clyde of Georgia, a member of the Appropriations Committee, be allowed to question witnesses in today's hearing without objection, so ordered. Last Friday, we observed the one-year anniversary of Putin's illegal and brutal invasion of Ukraine. The American people have responded with extraordinary support for the Ukrainians. Millions of Americans have donated their time and money to charitable organizations helping the Ukrainian people. Some have even volunteered to fight alongside the Ukrainian Defense Forces. Congress has responded by appropriating over $100 billion in military, economic, and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and our NATO allies. To date, the administration has distributed over $75 billion of that money, including $46 billion in security assistance. These are unprecedented numbers, and it requires an unprecedented level of oversight by this committee and by Congress. We're up to the task. Last year, Chairman Smith started monthly classified briefings with the administration officials that have continued into the new majority. Many of us have traveled to Ukraine and surrounding countries to witness firsthand the train and equip mission. We've made classified information on the situation in Ukraine available to all members, and our staff have constantly been constantly being briefed with the latest developments by the department. But today is the first time the committee of the House is holding an open public hearing on the matter. I've asked the Inspector General and the Undersecretary to appear today because it is imperative that the American people understand, A, where our security system is going, B, how it's being used, C, and what protections are in place to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. But oversight is about more than just accounting. It's about ensuring the administration is setting strategic goals and implementing a policy to achieve them. That's why we all are here with very real concerns. Since the beginning, the President has been overly worried, in my view, that giving Ukraine what it needs to win would be too escalatory. This hesitation has only prolonged the war and driven up the cost in terms of dollars and lives. This conflict must end, and the President must be willing to do what it takes to end it with victory. Continued reluctance and indecision only empowers Putin, and it sends the wrong signals to President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party. And with that, I yield to my friend and colleague, the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I welcome our witnesses as well, and really thank you for the work you've done. You've all appeared before us in classified settings to update us on a very regular basis on the effort in Ukraine. We appreciate the cooperative relationship between the executive branch and the legislative branch on this matter. And more than anything, we appreciate your leadership in supporting Ukraine so effectively over the course of the last year. I think it's hard to really imagine the massive undertaking that has been done in the last year since Russia made its decision to invade, and really since in the weeks and to some degree months before the invasion, when we came to realize from our intelligence community that this was going to happen. First of all, we were about the only country in the world that thought it was going to happen. Even the Ukrainians themselves, right up literally to the day of the invasion, thought that we were exaggerating the intelligence and that this wasn't actually going to happen. So from pretty much a dead stop, the Biden administration had to pull together a massive coalition to do something that almost all of the countries involved in that coalition had never contemplated doing and certainly had hoped they would never have to do. And we've done that with a remarkable outcome. The way that coalition was pulled together and the forces that have been given and the weapons that have been given to Ukraine to enable them to be as successful as they have been, combined, of course, with their unbelievable courage and tenacity, is really a remarkable accomplishment. And I think we need to understand it in that perspective. Obviously, we would like the Ukraine to win tomorrow, Russia to be completely pushed out. But I think we also have to be realistic about the challenge that we faced and how we've gone about meeting that challenge, and really how effective we've been in doing that. Now, the purpose of this hearing specifically is on oversight. I think we have had a lot of oversight on this effort from the very beginning. And that is part of the reason why the effort has been so successful. There are constant efforts to sort of spin stories, primarily coming from Russian propaganda, about corruption and weapon systems going where they're not supposed to be. But people who have looked at this, and I know the chairman has done this in great detail, have found that there is no instance of that happening. We have seen the effectiveness. And the best evidence of this, clearly and unequivocally, is the fact that the Ukrainians have been as successful on the battlefield as they have been. If the weapons and equipment and support that we were sending them was being sent elsewhere or stolen or misused, they would have lost a long time ago. Because I think one of the other things that we forget here is even us in the U.S., we saw the war coming, we supported Ukraine, but even us, along with everybody else, thought the Ukrainians didn't stand a chance. We thought that the Russians would be in Kyiv in a week or two, a month at the most. So the fact that they've been as successful as they have been is the best evidence we have that these systems and support that we're sending them is being as well used as it possibly can. And I do want to touch upon the point that the chairman made about how the administration hasn't been quick enough. You know, one of the things that we've heard, not just from critics of the war who don't want to support it, but even from people who do support it, is that there can't be a blank check. That's been sort of the criticism that you take if you want to sort of make it sound like you're still with Ukraine, but you want to be responsible. And I think that's appropriate, okay? But no blank check means no blank check. It means we don't just send everything that people ask for in the blink of an eye without even thinking about it, okay? We think about it and we get the Ukrainians what they really need. And I'm going to go ahead and hit upon one of those examples because I think this is a really good example of the problem, and that is the F-16, which everyone has become obsessed over here in recent weeks. We have considered that request, and I've had many conversations with the witnesses before us and with the DOD as well. And the honest truth is the cost of trying to get the F-16 up and ready to operate in Ukraine, even if we basically said there's nothing more important than that one weapon system and spent all of our time and all of our resources on doing it, best case scenario, we could maybe get some operational F-16s into Ukraine within a year, maybe 8 months if we really pushed it. And this is getting lucky, all right? Because you don't just have to train the pilots. You have to train the mechanics. You have to have airfields that can accommodate the F-16. And you have to have the spare parts to make it work. So we looked at that and we determined that is not a wise use of the resources that are necessary to win the fight. That's what no blank check means. You don't just send it without thinking about it. We thought about it and reached a very intelligent conclusion that this is not the right system. And oh, by the way, a fourth-generation fighter in this particular fight is going to struggle to survive. There are isolated circumstances where the Ukrainians have been able to use the MiG-29s that they have, very isolated, because it's a fourth-generation fighter in the face of a ton of air defense. What we are getting the Ukrainians is those air defense systems that they desperately need to survive right now, and the artillery and the HIMARS and the weapon systems that they do need. So the administration is doing exactly what it needs to do, getting equipment as quickly and as responsibly as possible to make this work. And I also want to make everybody aware of the fact the Russians are fighting a massive information campaign. Yes, they're fighting on the battlefield, and I'll look forward to hearing more details about that today. But they are also trying to break the coalition. You know, the Russian military has performed incredibly poorly. The Ukrainians have performed incredibly heroically, and the war is not going the way that Putin wanted it to. But he is not giving up. And he knows his only hope is to break the coalition that is trying to support Ukraine. And they're trying to do that in a variety of different ways. I mean, you can see all the different arguments about how, well, NATO really started this because of NATO expansion and a whole lot of other nonsense arguments that are circulating out there. But the other part of the way they're doing it is any break in the coalition they see, they're poking and they're prodding. Okay? They want to undermine the Biden administration. So while we have constructive criticism of what's going on, let's make sure that that criticism is constructive and we maintain our unity. And I know it is very, very difficult for the folks on the other side of the aisle to say anything positive about the Biden administration. But part of holding this coalition together is to acknowledge the incredible job that has been done in the last year and to maintain that unity and to not jump at every shiny object that seems to be criticism of the Biden administration, like the F-16. Right now, and I've asked this question, we are getting every single weapon system that we can to Ukraine. There is not a decision being made about that might be escalatory. It's about what can we get to them? How can we maintain the support? We've spent a lot of money. There is not a limitless amount of money or a limitless amount of equipment. So I think those decisions are being made wisely. I look forward to this hearing. I think it's perfectly appropriate that we have aggressive oversight as we've had since the beginning. And that's part of the reason why we've been as successful to date as we have been. With that, I yield back. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses.
I thank the ranking member. I now want to introduce our witnesses. The Honorable Colin Call is the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. Dr. Call has been the primary official overseeing the DOD's response to Ukraine. The Honorable Dr. Robert Storch is the Inspector General of the Department of Defense. Together with the IGs of the State Department and USAID, his office is carrying out audits and investigations of the assistance we are providing to Ukraine. And Lieutenant General Doug Sims is the Director of Operations for the Joint Staff. He assists the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs in developing and providing operational guidance on Ukraine and other military operations. I welcome the witnesses. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your preparation. I know this takes a lot of effort to get ready for these hearings, and it is appreciated and helpful. Dr. Call, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Smith, members of the committee, it's a real honor to appear before you today alongside my good friend, Lieutenant General D.A. Sims over there, and Dr. Storch, our department's Inspector General. I want to begin by expressing the unwavering support of the Department of Defense for Ukraine's sovereignty and security in the face of Russia's unprovoked and brutal invasion. I know that support is shared by and is enabled by Congress and the American people. So I want to thank you for your crucial and continued help to get Ukraine the military capabilities and other types of assistance that it needs to remain in the fight. Thank you, too, for holding this important hearing at this pivotal time for the security of Ukraine, of Europe, and of the world. As we mark 1 year since Russia's further invasion of Ukraine, it's clear that Russia has failed to achieve any of its objectives. Its military is paying tremendous costs. Ukraine remains united and determined to expel Russia's invading forces from its territory. And NATO unity is stronger now than it has been in decades. We are seeing intense fighting in eastern Ukraine as Russia seeks points to exploit and Ukraine defends tenaciously. What happens in the coming months may prove decisive, and we are focused on providing Ukraine with the capabilities it needs right now to defend its people and its territory and change the dynamics on the front lines. I'd like to take a few minutes to lay out our priority capabilities, the ones we're providing to Ukraine now and in the coming days, weeks, and months. First, we have focused on a layered, integrated approach to air defense to counter Russia's attacks on population centers and civilian infrastructure. The Patriot capability from the United States, as well as that provided by Germany and the Netherlands, will give Ukraine advanced long-range capability. These are complemented by medium and short-range capabilities provided by the United States, as well as our allies and partners. Second, we continue to work with allies and partners to deliver a steady flow of artillery rounds and other ammunition so Ukraine can sustain its fight. Third, to enhance Ukraine's ability to maneuver, the United States will provide Abrams main battle tanks, the best tanks in the world. The UK has also committed Challenger tanks, and other European states will provide Leopard tanks. These main battle tanks are complemented by other vital armor capabilities from the United States, including Bradleys and Stryker fighting vehicles, and other fighting vehicles from our European partners. Finally, we have expanded U.S.-led collective training to enable the Ukrainians to better integrate fires and maneuver. Our assistance to Ukraine is possible thanks to the tremendous bipartisan support from Congress. As you know, we have now provided $31.7 billion in support since Russia launched its further invasion of Ukraine a year ago, and our allies and partners have now provided over $19 billion in addition to what we've done. The Department of Defense appreciates the most recent additional Supplemental Appropriations Act which provided presidential drawdown authority, funding for the military services to replace items sent to Ukraine, and funding for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USAI. Even as we focus on getting Ukraine what it needs, we've always prioritized accountability, and Ukraine has too. We have adapted our accountability practices for the combat environment to address the risk of illicit diversion, using mechanisms that go above and beyond our standard practices. 1 year ago, Russia launched its brutal invasion to destroy Ukraine as a free and sovereign nation, threatening European security, transatlantic unity, and the security of the world. Today, an independent, sovereign, democratic Ukraine endures. The incredible people in the armed forces of Ukraine remain unbowed and unbroken, and NATO and the wider community of democracies around the world is stronger than ever. The stakes for our national security remain significant. We are determined to support Ukraine's fight against tyranny and oppression, and in doing so to defend the American interests and values that are so clearly at stake. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Call. I'd like to recognize General Sims now for 5 minutes to summarize his statement.
Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Smith, distinguished members, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I appreciate today's opportunity to update you on the U.S. military efforts to help the Ukrainian people in their continued fight against the Russian invasion. Today marks the 369th day since Russian forces invaded and began their illegal and unprovoked large-scale invasion of Ukraine. As we meet today, the current situation between Ukraine and Russia is generally static, with both sides employing heavy amounts of artillery, resulting in minimal changes of territory and significant numbers of casualties. In our follow-on session, I'm prepared to discuss particulars of Ukrainian disposition, but generally, and as you've seen reported in open sources, the most active portion of the battlefield today is around the town of Bakhmut. As I have briefed before, over the past 2 months, the Russian army, with assistance of private military contractor Wagner Group, has fought savagely to defeat Ukraine's defenses, employing extreme amounts of artillery and waves of thousands of partially trained, mobilized soldiers and personnel contracted from prisons. The Russians have made incremental gains at significant cost. Ultimately, as I have described before, the fighting has replicated the conditions of the First World War. Key to changing this paradigm is creating a Ukrainian armed forces capable of breaking this state of fighting. In this regard, since I last updated this committee, the concentration of U.S. effort has been focused on combining equipment and munitions with people and training. The intent and efforts of the U.S. military are designed to generate combat-credible forces capable of combining fire and movement to achieve maneuver and increase the overall capabilities of the Ukrainian armed forces. Importantly, this training effort is not solely the work of the U.S. armed forces, but is a cohesive approach with our allies and partners. Collective training is ongoing throughout Europe and is dramatically increasing Ukrainian combined arms organizations. All told, since January, the U.S. military has trained another 1,000 Ukrainians, bringing the total trained by the United States to just over 4,000. As I speak, Ukrainians are training in multiple locations in Europe, working with U.S. service members and military trainers from our allies and partners. Key to our ability to conduct collaborative training has been the recent increase in maneuver-related equipment. The U.S. provision of Bradley fighting vehicles, Strykers, and Paladin howitzers, combined with similar fighting vehicles and tank contributions from our partners, is notably increasing the capability of the Ukrainian armed forces. In addition, the U.S. continues to supply critical munitions and individual equipment, from howitzer ammunition to medical and cold weather gear. Finally, and critically important to Ukraine's ability to continue to defeat Russian efforts to destroy civilian infrastructure, U.S. armed forces will soon complete the training and equipping of Ukraine's first Patriot battery. As you know, our air defense experts are providing key training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. We are confident the Ukrainians will employ Patriots with the same expertise they are demonstrating every day with their current air defense capabilities. Thank you for what this committee and this Congress have done and continue to do to provide oversight and resources in support of Ukraine as they continue to fight against the illegal and unprovoked large-scale invasion. While the Ukrainians bear the real burdens of this war, your support and that of the American people has had a profound impact on Ukraine's future. I look forward to your questions and discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Mr. Dortch, you're recognized.
Chairman Rogers, Ranking Member Smith, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to appear today to discuss the Department of Defense Office of the Inspector General's comprehensive independent oversight of U.S. security assistance to Ukraine, as well as our active participation in a whole-of-government approach to ensuring robust oversight of the full range of American assistance. During the year following the 2022 Russian invasion, the DoD OIG completed 4 Ukraine-related oversight projects, with a 5th report released just yesterday. We currently have some 20 ongoing and planned audits and evaluations that are focused on, among other things, ensuring that tax dollars are used properly, that there's appropriate accountability for weapons and other material, and that U.S. stocks are appropriately replenished so they're available should they be needed elsewhere. Additionally, the DoD OIG's Defense Criminal Investigative Service is actively engaged in conducting fraud prevention and investigative activities that play a critical role in ensuring the integrity of U.S. assistance to Ukraine. The DoD OIG currently has more than 90 professionals engaged in oversight of security assistance to Ukraine. In 2022, we issued 2 management advisories that identified several areas of concern that could directly impact the DoD's ability to transparently track and report the supplemental appropriations for Ukraine. Earlier this year, we initiated an audit examining DoD's execution of funds appropriated to assist Ukraine. We have long been focused on end-use monitoring, known as EUM, and enhanced end-use monitoring, or EEUM, the DoD's tracking of how our country's partners employ military assistance and sensitive equipment after those assets are transferred to them. As early as 2020, we issued a report on how the DoD was conducting EEUM of military assistance to Ukraine. In October 2022, we published a classified report that identified challenges DoD personnel responsible for EUM and EUM face when there are limited or no U.S. personnel present, and the actions the DoD was taking to address those issues in Ukraine. As the situation on the ground has continued to evolve, we recently initiated our 3rd evaluation on EEUM in Ukraine, and we will continue to focus on this important area. Yesterday, we publicly released our most recent report related to the Ukraine effort, making recommendations to assist the Army with its maintenance, inventory, and other processes for pre-positioned equipment in the region. In addition to the topics above, our ongoing and planned projects cover the waterfront of American security assistance to Ukraine, addressing critical issues like the replenishment of U.S. stocks, intelligence sharing, security control for the transport of weapons and equipment, their maintenance and sustainment, awards of non-competitive contracts, and the training of Ukrainian armed forces. And, as noted at the outset, DCIS agents are drawing on their experience around the world to conduct outreach and investigations to help prevent and address fraud or other criminal conduct. We are not conducting this oversight alone. We are partnering closely with the Department of State OIG and the U.S. Agency for International Development OIG and many others across the oversight community in a coordinated approach to ensure comprehensive oversight of all U.S. assistance to Ukraine. Along with our oversight partners, the DoD OIG established and leads the Ukraine Oversight Interagency Working Group, which brings together 20 oversight entities in a whole-of-government approach. Just last month, my office and the state and USAID OIGs, in coordination with the larger working group, published our Joint Strategic Oversight Plan, which publicly describes our completed and ongoing work. As detailed in the plan, we are employing the proven model that has been used for years to ensure comprehensive oversight of overseas contingency operations, and we will work together in this effort for as long as the conflict and the need for oversight continue. At the end of January, I traveled with the leaders of the state and USAID OIGs to Germany, Poland, and into Ukraine in order to obtain the latest on-the-ground perspective, to build on our coordinated approach, and to deliver an unambiguous message to American and, in Kyiv, high-level Ukrainian officials about the expectations for accountability for U.S. assistance. The trip made clear that the situation is fluid and calls for continuous, agile oversight. The DoD OIG, working hand in glove with our oversight partners, will continue to make independent oversight of assistance to Ukraine a matter of the highest priority, and we will continue to keep the Congress and the public informed about our work. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I look forward to your questions.